My name is Vartan Oskanian, and I will be talking about the ongoing talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan on so-called peace agreement. For those who don't know me, I've served as Foreign Minister of Armenia for 10 years, from 1998 to 2008. Before that, I've been with the Armenian Diplomatic Service since the early days of Armenia's independence in 1991. Since 1993, I've been at the forefront of Karabakh talks, and from 1996 on, I've been the chief negotiator for Armenia on the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict until the end of my tenure as Foreign Minister of Armenia. Afterwards, of course, I followed the events, the developments. I'm familiar with this conflict very well. I know all the details and the nuances. I've always had a front row in the talks. I've seen many different proposals by the Minsk Group co-chairs come and go, different ideas being thrown at us, different views being deliberated. But what's transpiring today, as I follow, is incredibly unbelievable. What's on table today is uneven, unfair. It's an agenda that is one-sided. It feels like the Armenian side has no items on that agenda. Clearly, such an agenda could not lead to a peaceful resolution, a just solution that could truly bring a long-lasting peace to the region and to the people of Armenia and Azerbaijan. So what's on agenda today is simply that Nagorno-Karabakh, as we Armenians know it as Artsakh, will be simply dissolved within Azerbaijan. It will be extinguished, will disappear, will evaporate. It will be part of Azerbaijan. This is clearly stated by Nikol Pashinyan, there's no doubt about it. In addition, Armenia will be conceding territories to Azerbaijan, so-called enclaves, in return for nothing. And those territories that will be conceded would greatly impede Armenia's accessibility to its neighbors in the south, Iran, and to the north, Georgia. And all this against nothing. The Armenian negotiators, as I understand, are struggling. They are in an uphill battle to extract commitments from Azerbaijan to guarantee the safety, security, and the rights of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh that will be living within Azerbaijan. The negotiators are struggling to extract commitment from Azerbaijan to recognize Armenia's territorial integrity, whatever will be left of after conceding the enclaves, certain territories. Seriously, this path does not lead to peace. At best, this could be a temporary fix. It could be a respite, but at the same time will plant the seeds of an even bigger conflict in the future. Look, I understand Armenia lost the war, tables have turned, but there are limits to what you can impose on the vanquished. You have to be reasonable, especially if you are after a long-lasting peace, a just peace, not simply to formalize your territorial grabs, to formalize your war spoils. That will not lead to lasting peace because it will not be just. History is riddled with similar examples, and we know where such solutions lead to. And the most evident example is what's been imposed on Germany after World War I. So this path could not lead to peace. That's one. Secondly, Azerbaijan is no democracy. Even by the most loose and expensive definition of that word, one cannot conclude that Azerbaijan is a democratic state. It's an autocratic, it's a dictatorship. And Nagorno-Karabakh being what they are, having been an independent political entity in the past 30 years, having conducted more than a dozen of elections, regional, parliamentary, presidential, in a very democratic way, given their aspiration to be living in a democratic environment, to be a democratic entity. Given all that, these people, 120 to 150,000 of them, simply cannot be thrown at the laps of a dictatorship. This won't work out. This will not bring peace, and their security, their rights, minimum rights, cannot be guaranteed. Thirdly, Pashinyan is engaged in these talks under duress. He's negotiating under duress. There's a gun on his head, and that is the threat of war. We see that every day. We feel that every day. Every time there's an idea thrown at him, as an alternative solution, the answer is that if we do that, Azerbaijan will attack us. There will be war. So there's this constant threat of war in the mind of today's negotiators, in the mind of Pashinyan. And this will render him irrational in his decisions. And whatever agreement he reaches, that will be questionable. And whatever signature he puts on, the legitimacy of that signature will be highly debatable, questionable, because the whole process has been conducted under duress. And finally, if Pashinyan truly goes on and signs agreement, Armenia will lapse into a perpetual cycle of instability. Democracy as we know it will simply disappear, or democracy as we wish to have in the future will never happen, because Pashinyan's chair and his security will collapse into one, and that is a clear recipe for dictatorship. The West that is encouraging Pashinyan, helping him to go ahead and sign, will be doing a huge disservice to the Armenian people, Armenian nation, Armenian state, because Armenia's democracy will be in reverse. It will simply disappear, will be extinguished. So these are, I think, reasons to make us think and believe that this path will not lead to peace. But there are alternatives to this. There are peaceful alternatives. This agenda needs to be modified, needs to be amended. The whole philosophy of the talks needs to be changed. The whole narrative needs to be changed. And there are ways to do it. The agenda needs to be more even, more equal, more just. And to do that, Armenia must immediately introduce to the agenda the fact that Nagorno-Karabakh people during the Soviet time, which is the only period where they had any association with Azerbaijan, that fact that they had autonomous status need to be introduced into the agenda, especially that Azeris have introduced to the agenda the item of enclaves, right? Both enclaves and the fact that Karabakh people had autonomous status, they're both the legacies of the Soviet period. You can't simply just pick and choose, have one on the agenda and dismiss and ignore the other one. It's Armenia's right now to bring this to the table, to have it on the agenda. And this has to be the benchmark that any future negotiation or discussion about the fate of people in Nagorno-Karabakh must be based on. So this is the benchmark that will eventually make the Karabakh people decide where they want to go from here on concerning their fate, their future. I'm being very careful here the way I'm framing this whole idea. I'm not suggesting that the Karabakh people revert back to their previous autonomous status within Azerbaijan. That's not what I'm suggesting. Who am I to make such a suggestion? It's totally up to the people of Nagorno-Karabakh to decide their future fate. What I'm suggesting is simply that Armenia, as the main negotiator here, the negotiating party, introduced to the agenda of the talks the fact that Nagorno-Karabakh people during the Soviet time, before declaring their own independence, they already had an autonomous status that has to be a benchmark for any future discussion about their fate and their future. And Armenia has the right to do this. No one can oppose it. If Azerbaijan opposes it, they should be under serious pressure, and they should be subject to international law terms because refusing even to accept that fact to be included on the agenda, that means they don't even talk about any possible internal self-determination. That means the people of Karabakh will automatically have the right to aspire for external self-determination, whether that is independence or some other status. Look, as Armenia introduces this item, and they must, at the same time, Armenia must hold on to its recognition of Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. Because unless there is a clarity on this item, whether it is accepted or not, the way the talks will be conducted around this particular topic will be a determining factor about the Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. Because unless there is no clarity on this item, according to international law, Azerbaijan's territorial integrity will be a rebuttable presumption. Lawyers will understand this, international lawyers in particular. Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, that principle will be a rebuttable presumption as long as there's no clarity on this particular item. Look, the international law is very clear on this one. There is a UN resolution, which was adopted unanimously by all UN member states in 1970. I think the number of resolutions is 25, 26, or the reverse, 26, 25, which is called in short Friendly Relations Resolution, stipulates the following. It says, nothing in the preceding paragraph should be construed or interpreted as such to authorize impeding or obstructing, in part or in whole, the territorial integrity or political unity of member states that are, and this is the key here, that are in compliance with the respective equal rights and the self-determination of peoples, in compliance, the respective equal rights and the rights of self-determination of peoples. A contrary reading of this paragraph makes clear that when those rights are not respected, the right of self-determination is not respected, the territorial integrity of that particular state, at best for them, could become a rebuttable presumption. That's what it is now. Let Armenia introduce that item. Let's see how Azerbaijan will react, how they conduct the talks around this topic. Then Armenia will decide whether eventually will recognize Azerbaijan's territorial integrity or not. This is not the only item. This is not the only resolution that stipulates this principle. There are court decisions that stipulate the same principle. The Åland Island case, there's the Katanga case. Åland Island was the early 20th century, early 1920s. The Katanga case, the early 90s. There's the Canada Supreme Court decision concerning Quebec, I think was around 1996. All these decisions, their contrary reading, provides a similar stipulation about the territorial integrity and the right to self-determination. So Armenia must introduce, as I said, that item to the agenda, where the agenda will become more even, will be more just, and only then we can hope that the talks may lead eventually to such a resolution that will provide just and long-lasting peace for the region and for the people of Armenia and Azerbaijan. Now, let me conclude by addressing one other item. If you noticed, I was mentioning the word people with particular emphasis. I think the people, the people right for self-determination, because recently I'm noticing a very dangerous trend that is seeping into our vocabulary, into the parlance of the talk. This is being done deliberately. And the intention here is to reduce Karabakh population from people to national minority. There are a whole different set of norms and rules that guide the rights or determine the rights of national minorities and people. It's the only people that have the right to self-determination. Our adversaries know this. Some of the mediators that have ulterior motives know this. Unfortunately, the government of Armenia is playing along with this. They're using the same terminology. We need to fight this back, and we need to do it vociferously, because this is very dangerous. If we let this slip us, that means the rug is being pulled off from underneath the feet of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh as they continue to strive for their self-determination. We shouldn't let this happen. Fortunately, there's a clear definition by the UN and international law as what type of people, population could qualify for the category of people. Being people is not a matter of law, it's a matter of fact. But that fact will have its, as I said, its legal repercussions. Only the people that have the right for self-determination. The UN definition is the UNESCO definition, and the international law definition is clear. When you are a group of people or population, individuals living in compact on a territory, you've been historically there, there's historic association with the land, you're on it. You are distinct in terms of your ethnicity, your historic heritage, your religion, your language, your even economic life. You have common traditions. You have common self-consciousness. You have common aspiration for your future, and you have the means and institutions to translate those aspirations into reality. You are, by definition of international law and the UN and UNESCO, you are people. And every single item that I mentioned there clearly fit the Karabakh people's presence on these territories historically, in the immediate past, today, and and tomorrow. The population of Nagorno-Karabakh, they are people and they have the right for self-determination. I want to conclude by saying Armenia needs to change the narrative of the talks today. That is a dangerous fact. It will not lead to peace. There is peaceful alternative. Let's modify the agenda of the talk. Let's make it more even, more just by introducing this particular item. Let's insist on it, and I believe we will reach a more just and equitable solution for our peoples. Thank you.